this episode of our look at the Lord's Prayer. Today we're looking at the phrase, lead us not into temptation. In my first job after leaving school, I just worked in a little mini supermarket, and I worked in various departments, although the shop wasn't that big, I say departments, but they had butchery, they had fruit and veg, and they had general groceries. And one day in the summer, the strawberries came in, and they had to be weighed out and put in punnets. Now, this was back in the 70s. Now, in the supermarket, you can get strawberries all year round. But back in the 70s, these things were seasonal. And so it was only in the summer when the strawberries came into the shop. So it was a real treat. And also, in our day, they're just packed in little plastic containers by a machine, I guess. I don't know what happens. But in this little shop, somebody had to weigh them out and put them into little kind of like wooden punnets, but sort of cardboardy or maybe some sort of fibre from a tree. It all looked very nice, and one day when the delivery came in, they asked me to be the one to weigh out the strawberries into the punnets. And that may have been a mistake on their behalf, because at that time I was the middle child of 5 boys. So when my mum got a punnet of strawberries, and there was also my dad as well, it had to go around 7 of us. So you only got a couple of strawberries, depending on how big the strawberries were. But I really love strawberries, still do today. But I always had the feeling when the punnet was shared between 7 people that you just wanted more strawberries. And these were sort of proper English strawberries, taste much sweeter than some of the strawberries you get today. It was a real taste of summer, and I just couldn't believe my luck when they left me alone in the back room. So basically I had a set weight, and I just had to put the weight of that many strawberries on the scale and then empty them into the punnet and then stack the punnets up. But the temptation to eat a couple of strawberries on the way, I mean, I had a mountain of strawberries back there, and I have to confess I fell into temptation, and I think I ate as many strawberries as I loaded into the punnets. I can't believe that shop made any profit on the strawberry front on that day when I was responsible for weighing out the punnets of strawberries. And the other thing I remember about that incident is I used to go home for lunch. When I went home that day, I don't think I had any lunch. I just felt so ill. You know, putting someone who it turns out is a strawberry addict in charge of the strawberries was a big mistake, and it was a mistake for me. I saw temptation and I took my chance, but boy did I regret it that afternoon, because I had to go back to work. I was feeling really unwell, and I don't know if the owner of the shop ever worked out that he didn't make as much profit on the strawberries that day or not, but I gave into temptation. And in today's phrase in the Lord's Prayer, we pray, lead us not into temptation. And it's strange because we're asking God not to lead us into temptation. But in the letter from James, he tells us that God does not tempt anyone. In all the New Testament teaching, it's taught that the devil is the one that tempts us. Not least because at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, we read that the Spirit drove him out into the desert to be tempted by the devil. And we read the various temptations that the devil put before Christ. So we may need to understand that this phrase, lead us not into temptation, is only half a sentence. The full sentence is lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So it's an enclosed package. It's a prayer to be delivered out of trouble, delivered out of temptation, and delivered from evil. But we're going to look at that other phrase, deliver us from evil, next time. So we just want to concentrate on the first part of this sentence, lead us not into temptation. Jesus taught that temptation is something we fall into. He told his disciples not to fall into temptation. We all know that as we go about our day-to-day lives, occasionally we can trip or fall over, and it's not a good thing. And so once we've done that a couple of times as kids, you do kind of develop an ability to kind of look ahead and avoid the trips and falls in daily life. What Jesus was saying about don't fall into temptation was, be alert and watch out for the occasional banana skin that could cause us to fall. So we need to be alert, and so that we don't fall into temptation. When Paul was writing to his friends at Corinth, he told them that temptation is common to all. We all are sometimes tempted. It's whether we act on that temptation that counts. But even if we do fall into temptation, Paul says that God gives us a way out. So falling into temptation is not the end of the world. It's not unrecoverable. But what Jesus is saying is, be careful you don't fall into temptation. So be alert. But if you do fall into temptation, because it's common to everyone, Paul says, God will give us a way out of temptation. And it's up to us to act, to take that way out, to take the steps out of temptation or out of the trouble that we've caused ourselves. And then the writer of the letter to the Hebrews gives us some good news. And they tell us that Jesus has been tempted in every way. So Jesus understands, and it also says that Jesus can empathize with us because he's been tempted in every way possible. So today's phrase is really about asking God to help us be alert, to protect us from evil, to protect us from temptation, to keep our eyes open so that we don't fall into the pit of temptation. Okay, so I confess to eating more strawberries than was good for me back in the 70s, but I wonder if there's something you can think of, perhaps when you were young and a bit more naive, that you easily fell into temptation. What would that be? And then, of course, there's all sorts of temptations. But for me at that time, strawberries were irresistible, and I certainly fell into the temptation. So what about you? What is a temptation that you fell into in the past? Do go onto our website for more resources that will help you in your journey of faith at rsvptrust.co.uk. I hope you're finding this series helpful or inspiring. Do drop a little comment in the comments section below with your ideas and thoughts on the Lord's Prayer. And also don't forget to give us a like on YouTube, hit that red subscribe button, click the little bell icon, and I'll see you in the next video.